Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Off the Law and the Promise, great book. This is off chapter 12, Attitudes. One thing I love about this chapter, I think it's probably one of the coolest things about this chapter for sure, is it brings a couple things to mind. One, we actually have the ability to make a difference in our lives, not just in what we attract to ourselves and how we try to manifest circumstances, but also in dealing with people that we meet on a regular basis, people that we interact with. Sometimes we meet people that we don't like. Sometimes we meet people that seem like they're putting a block up for the thing that we're trying to create. So it's a huge component of trying to get us back on track, right? Is kind of remembering that, oh, wow, we have an opportunity to help influence people in a positive way. Now, this can be done through revision. This can be done through just playing things back in our mind. This can be done very similar to the story that's going to be shared here with us. But it's keeping that in mind when we meet people, when we're trying to create things in our life. It's remembering that there are people that we're going to interact with. There's people that may be gatekeepers to the next step that we'd like to take. And maybe we don't get along with them. And so a lot of us go down the path of trying to remove them, trying to figure out a way to get rid of this person that's in my way. And I will say, for jobs, for example, if you've got a job you're after, and if the boss or the manager that's been at the company for maybe a long time, it's kind of how they get to positions of power like that. They've been there a long time, and you're trying to manifest them leaving. There might be a better approach to getting what you're trying to get without trying to essentially move a mountain. Instead of moving a mountain, maybe we influence the mountain. Maybe we, like water, we slowly erode away on the mountain and help create the situation that we want. It's very powerful when we really look at people from a standpoint of we're all here playing together, working nice together, and trying to make a difference in this world. And if they seem like they're in your way, maybe we just need to see it a little differently. I frequently talk about how when things look funny in your own life and you're trying to manifest something different, don't just focus on this blockade, or don't just focus on this third party, or don't just focus on this manager that's keeping you from your job. Focus on where you're trying to go. Focus on where you're trying to get. And so when you do that, you obviously put more power towards that. And the same can be said about people. You can influence people to actually help make a difference. And sometimes someone who may seem like an enemy up front could in turn out to be one of your biggest supporters. And this has happened to me on more than one occasion. Someone I didn't get along with, but just said, screw it, I'm going to try to get along with this person. Because me, frankly, I get along with everyone. I really do. I've met people of all walks, people that are evil, people that aren't. Like, I can get along with anybody. And sometimes when we can essentially turn the frown upside down, but when we can change the situation even a little, now all of a sudden this person that's been against us every step of the way is now singing your praises. And once that change occurs, sometimes this person can open up doors that you never thought were there. In fact, I've had that happen too, where the person that, if I would have tried to get rid of them and succeeded, I wouldn't have gotten my dream. In fact, it was them that opened up the dream for me. So by me kind of opening up and sort of thinking, how can I enhance this relationship? How can I make things better between us? How can I get a better situation with this individual so I can improve both of our lives? And this is a great example in this chapter, Attitudes. So it starts, memory, though faulty, is adequate to call for sameness. If we remember another as we have known him, we recreate him in that image, and the past will be recognized in the present. Imagining creates reality. If there is room for improvement, we should reconstruct him with a new content. Visualize him as we would like him to be, rather than have him bear the burden of our memory of him. Everything possible to be believed is an image of truth. Everything possible is an image of truth. It truly is. And it comes from us. So when we've got these situations where we're remembering people the way they were in the past, could be an ex-boyfriend, could be someone that we like. We keep remembering how they were. We keep remembering how they were. We keep bringing up past situations. And by revisiting that memory, rather than trying to revise or create new or enhance it or whatever. But by revisiting it, we continue to recreate that same situation. And so maybe Johnny was a jerkhole to you a year ago. Johnny might have just been having a bad day. Johnny might just have heard something horrible about you. Johnny may have just found out some bad news at work. Johnny may have just found out that hangnail that he's been bothering him all day was a legit problem. I don't know, right? Johnny's got some really small issues to deal with if the hangnail's the biggest problem, right? So the following story here is by one who believes that imagining creates reality, and acting on this belief changed his attitude towards a stranger and bore witness to the change in reality. Now, this is kind of a neat example in that this guy actually changed someone's life. Didn't benefit him directly as much, but, the way it benefit him, and we'll get into it some more, but he had a past kind of belief that all situations that happen this way represent this problem. So anytime I ever see this situation, forget it. I'm not doing it. I'm not behaving the way they want me to. And what he learned is, no, that's not necessarily always the way to go about it. Yeah, maybe there was a bad apple. Yeah, maybe there was many bad apples. But you kind of got to weigh each situation uniquely. You've got to look at everything that comes to you and go, is this different? Is this something that's coming because I've attracted it? Should I be reacting to this? Is this something that I shouldn't react to? How should I? You need to take a moment and kind of look at what's happening, especially when there's a coincidence or some sort of repetition or some sort of interesting little something normal, something common, something's popping out, something about, like I said, something that this has happened before. So more than 20 years ago, when I was a green farm boy, newly arrived in Boston to attend school, a panhandler asked me for money for a meal. Although the money I had was pitifully insufficient for my own needs, I gave him what was in my pocket. A few hours later, the same man, by this time staggering drunk, stopped me again and asked for money. I was so outraged to think the money I could so ill afford had been put to such use. I made myself a solemn pledge that I would never again listen to the plea of a street beggar. Through the years, I kept my pledge, but every time I refused anyone, my conscience needled me. I felt guilty, even to the point of developing a sharp pain in my stomach. But I couldn't bring myself to unbend. Right? He'd said it in his mind, this person ruined it for everybody I ever meet from here on out. This first boyfriend I had that broke my heart ruined it for every boyfriend I'll ever have from this point on. This boss I had at this job ruined it for every single boss I've ever had. Right? Do you see how so many of us get ourselves into these little patterns? Something one time happened a certain way. Now every time it happens that way. That's how it's always going to be till the end of time. No. In fact, that's one of the coolest things about us being humans. 2, the soul. 3, how we manifest. 4, how we interact with other souls. One of the coolest things on this life is to see someone that once was a horrible person suddenly become a good person. And you ask them why. And they said, well, something happened in their lives. Something changed them. Something impacted them. That something can be us. That something can be you bouncing into them. So this individual kind of had a good heart, right? Did a nice thing. The person came across, trashed later. And because of that, he lost trust. In fact, it reminds me of this wonderful old guy named Tom that was doing this to me for a long time. He'd hit me up for money. He'd borrow $5. And then he'd come back the next day and he'd pay me back. And then he'd immediately, 5 minutes later, walk back to me and borrow back the $5. And he was doing this on a regular basis, and I knew why. He had a fixed income. He only had so much money a day, and he liked to get his drink on. And I knew full well that's what I was supporting. So what I did, because I knew it wasn't going to stop, and there's no change in this guy, Tom. He's a wonderful individual. Love him dearly, but I'm not going to keep giving him money. So one day I told Tom, I said, hey, look, Tom, here's the thing. How about this? How about we just go ahead and I'll just give you that $5, but how about you don't ask me for money anymore? How about that? And from this point on, Tom has never asked me for money again. He's done this to all sorts of different people. He's walked up, asked them for money, $5, always $5, and then he'll hit them up the following day, give them the money back, and then immediately ask it back. Because again, he gets $20 a day and a pack of cigarettes. That's what this guy's living on. He's an older dude. He's retired. It's just funny. He's known. He walks around the walks around the city like people know him. He literally walks to a Denny's that's like, it's like 4 miles away. But he goes to that one because he likes the people there better. So in the middle of the night, the guy's walking down the street. So again, people are all over the place. But this Tom and me, we have a great relationship. Tom's a good guy. Every Sunday, he brings up one of the comics. Dennis the Menace has me read it to him and just gets a big kick out of it. So again, we can impact people's lives and still not necessarily keep feeding their bad habits. I mean, again, take every situation differently. But when you've got patterns, when you've got things that are locked in, we need to open that up because these rules aren't applicable to everybody. Some people, yes. Some people, no. And really, we've got to learn to trust that feeling inside ourselves to try to figure out when and how we should react to these people. So, the early part of this year, this man stopped me as I was walking my dog and asked for money so we could eat. True to the old pledge, I refused him. His manner was gracious as he accepted my refusal. He even admired my dog and spoke of a family in New York State he knew that raised Cocker Spaniels. This time my conscience was really pricking me. As he went on his way, I determined to remake that scene as I wished it had been. So I stopped right there on the street, closed my eyes for only a few moments, and enacted the scene differently. In my imagination, I had the same man approach me, only this time he opened the conversation by admiring my dog. After we had talked a moment, I had him say, "I don't like to ask you this, but I really need something to eat. I have a job that begins tomorrow morning, but I've been out of work and tonight I'm hungry." I then reached into my imaginary pocket, pulled out an imaginary $5 bill, and gladly gave it to him. This imaginal act immediately dissolved the guilty feeling and the pain. I know from your teaching that an imaginal act is fact, so I knew I could grant anyone what he asked, and by faith in the imaginal act, consent to the reality of his having it. So 4 months later, as I was walking my dog, the same man approached me and opened the conversation by admiring my dog. "Here's a beautiful dog," he said. "Young man, I don't suppose you remember me, but a while back I asked you for some money, and you very kindly said no. I say kindly because if you had given it to me, I would still be asking for money. Instead, I got a job the very next morning, and now I am on my feet and have some self-respect again." I knew his job was a fact when I imagined it, and in that night, some 4 months before, but I won't deny there was an immense satisfaction in having him appear in the flesh to confirm it. These are those moments in life where we are allowed to touch other people. So that's always good. By the way, it's always good. What you do for the least of me, you do for myself, as a famous quote once said. What you send out to others comes back to you. When you have an opportunity to improve a situation for another human being, you're improving life for yourself. So when you've got situations with people that require a little more hands-on, that maybe require a little help, a little coaching, a little needling into the proper direction. Maybe it's someone that's frustrating. Maybe it's someone that can't help but think of politics every time you talk to them. Maybe it's an ex that won't text you back. Maybe it's someone that's still mad at you and still keeps you blocked on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. Start to play those imaginal scenes differently in your mind. Start to play them back differently. Start to revise them differently. The pruning shears of revision. Essentially, a lot of this ties into those revision steps. Start to imagine how people can be better in their own lives and thusly making it easier for you to enjoy them, for you to have relationships with them. In us imagining the best and brightest and most amazing world that we can imagine, even when there's obstacles, even when there's bad people, even when there's things that seem to be keeping us from our dream, these are the times to really realize, no, this is what I'm changing. This is what I don't like. This is what I can use these law of attraction, this Goddard teaching, this revision for. I can help enhance these situations. And as we've talked about frequently, if what you're sending to the individual is something that is beneficial to them and something that is part of their higher path, their higher self, or something that basically benefits the direction they're planning on going, then it's going to be accepted. And if it's something that's horrible and mean and wicked and foul, like some of us do sometimes instead, well, then they can reject it. And what ends up happening is that rejection basically gets bounced back on you. It's kind of like that I am rubber, you're glue, everything you say bounces off me and sticks to you. That's basically what happens when you're throwing out stuff that the person's refusing to accept, refusing to acknowledge, or even refusing to own. And so it falls back on you. So if you're trying to enhance things, if you're trying to make the world a better place, if you're trying to help get an obstacle, a personal obstacle anyway, out of your way, try altering the way you're seeing them. Try enhancing and revising the relationship that you have with them. Try to imagine a conversation with them that goes differently and better. Work on that in your mind, and then the next time you see them and the next time you interact with them, pay close attention to the difference in the interaction between you two. Pay attention to how you guys get along. And you will notice how broadly things can change, literally in one day. How broadly things can change. Just by a simple moment. He took a couple moments, imagined a different outcome, and let it go. Didn't think anything of it. 4 months later, boom, there's your confirmation. This is someone that doesn't matter, but these are also how you impact people that do matter. Use the same techniques. So make the difference to the person that you think is causing the problem. There a third party involved? Is there a boss that's holding you back? Is there somebody that won't let you, your parents aren't letting you do whatever the heck it is you want to do? Let's step back from that for a second. Let's revise that conversation, because probably the last time you had that conversation, maybe you were a little angry. Maybe you're a little frustrated. Let's revise that. Let's take away some of that bad energy that you had, some of that negativity, that anger, whatever it was. Let's alter that. Let's rewrite the story. Let's see if we can make a better ending. And then step back and watch how things unfold in your life. It's Dan Radio Style.